Okay, welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your host and guide through the show. And today we are very, very excited and proud to announce a new series that we're going to be hosting regularly called, and well, actually, before I tell you what it's called and what it's about, I will say that this series will be addressing the number one question around marketing that we receive from our listeners. And I'll also say that here at our own firm, we have about 700 realtors. This is also their number one question around marketing. And that question is, as a real estate professional, how should I best utilize Facebook for marketing to find new clients, how to market existing listings to buyers, and also what tools are available within the platform to help me grow? And we're going directly to the source for these answers. Now, we are beyond excited to announce Fireside Chat with Facebook. We have teamed up with the real estate team at Facebook to produce regular episodes designed to help agents better utilize Facebook. And we have Scott Shapiro, who is a senior client partner at Facebook, with us as our guest. Now, let me tell you about Scott before we officially welcome him. Now, Scott Shapiro is a senior client partner on the real estate team at Facebook, where he focuses on engaging with key clients and their ecosystem partners to develop marketing solutions and strategies to drive their businesses forward. In addition to the client partner role, Scott also serves as the industry relations liaison between the Facebook real estate sales team and the real estate industry, helping to educate agents, brokers, and leaders on Facebook's platforms and best practices. And prior to joining Facebook, Scott was a sales exec at ABC, where he also participated in sales advisory roles, acting as a consultant for the digital and sports teams. Scott, welcome to Keeping It Real. Welcome to our first Fireside Chat with Facebook. We're really excited to have you on the show. Thank you.
Likewise, DJ. Love that we're doing this. One of the things that I enjoy most about doing the industry relations is meeting new folks and having a new opportunity to reach as many people as we can. Your opening was perfect. We hear when we attend conferences or we do these large meetings or a webinar, how do I make Facebook work best for my business? And so the ability to do this through your platform, through your podcast in partnership with you is fantastic. And just excited to have this as our kickoff episode of a lot of different topics that we're going to bring to everybody in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, thank you for that. And also, we love Facebook, of course, because it's one of the ways we distribute our podcasts. We're able to do the behind the scenes. Is if you're watching live right now on our private Facebook group, or not private, rather, our Facebook group, which is called facebook.com/Keeping It Real pod. If you're not already a member, we just love it because we're able to distribute the episodes so much quicker, whereas we're still going to have to go back and polish this one up, put a music to it, and which is great as well, but it delays the time. So we love being able to broadcast live on Facebook. And I know that'll also be something we'll be chatting with about how real estate agents can begin to use those tools. So I thought, on our first episode here, what I thought made sense would be to really give our listeners a sense of what the Facebook real estate team is, what your team does.
Sure. Thanks, DJ. So I think one of the first things is we look at our jobs primarily as to be a strategic advisor to the industry to implement the right solutions so that agents and brokers actually get the right business results out of the platform. What we've noticed also is, frankly, there is a lot of confusion sometimes about what the platform can do, what I should be doing. So these are common questions, back to the opening, which is why we're excited to have this series. Our team is about 12 to 15 people large, covering the entire global real estate industry. And we cover clients that range from, the largest portals to new home builders to some of the largest brokerages, and really helping them design, in the case of brokerages, programs and technology that they can implement and give to agents so that agents can use Facebook advertising and marketing. And by the way, Instagram too. So we always lead with Facebook, but it's the whole suite of our platforms to drive business results. So some really close, wonderful partnerships with folks in the industry. We're constantly looking to push the ball forward. We're a young team. If you think about Facebook from an ads perspective, our ads business is 12 years old. Our team is about 3 years old. So we're consistently growing and we're consistently learning about the business. And so it's been a journey for us as well from an exploration perspective of understanding the business, learning it, and then tying that back to our platforms and really putting the two together.
Yeah, I think that is really helpful for our listeners to understand. I suspect a lot of them didn't realize there was a team at Facebook specifically designed to help agents. And I think that is really helpful because, again, it is our number one most requested sort of feature or question that we receive on the show is do you have what should I be doing on Facebook? And we have people who come on who are social media strategists, certainly giving great ideas. But specifically to real estate, we're so excited to have you guys specifically talking and addressing agents, one-on-one. So that's very exciting for us. So tell us a little bit more about what you guys do.
So a lot of what we do is really look at it from a strategic perspective of what does an agent or a broker want to do on the platform? What's the ultimate goal? Well, the ultimate goal is to find new consumers, engage with them, begin client relationships so that you begin that relationship so that when either one of two things, either become the seller's agent or the buyer's agent, that you're top of mind. Today, digital marketing is obviously the number one channel that agents and brokers use for their marketing, just period,
Sure.
across Facebook, Google, you name it. So our jobs are really to make sure that we strategically look at product, strategy that aligns to the business outcomes of the industry. And I think the second thing, what I do with the industry relations piece is making sure, again, because there is so much to our platforms, if you think about just Facebook, then you add Instagram, and then you add Messenger, and then you add WhatsApp, then you add in virtual, you add in new hardware like Oculus or portals. It can be a lot for an agent and or a broker to really put their arms around. So not only do we look at it we should be lead strategists out to the industry. So you should hear from Facebook about Facebook, and it's great that we have so many influencers in the business, and a lot of people have had success, and it's amazing to have those advocates. But we need to make sure our voice is heard from a product and a strategic perspective, and then that ties into just education, trying to demystify the platforms, trying to really lead agents to do the right things. I think one of the things we think about, DJ, is if you spend $5, we want it to be the best, most impactful $5. If you spend $500, the same in 5,000. So it's not about size of investment. It's about everyone should be educated enough to have success on the platform if we do the right things from our end to ship it back to the industry.
Right. And ultimately, Facebook wants to build relationships with agents. And so with respect to some of the advertising options that are offered, they want you to have a nice return on your investment so that you'll continually use the platform. And so what we're going to be talking about on the show, not always just advertising, we're going to be talking about some best practices around that so that you can, you have the best opportunity to see that return. And we're really excited because I know, I'm a digital strategist for our company. I'm not specifically producing real estate, but I do a lot of the digital marketing around recruiting agents and also even helping some of our agents with their own marketing efforts. And as somebody who does this full time, it is a lot of information. And so I'm so glad we're going to be unpacking it, here on the show, episode after episode. This is really wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think the last thing I would say in the opening that I want agents and brokers to take away is that we want everyone to have an opportunity to have success. I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, but this is really, our jobs are to advise the industry. We do this across multiple industries at Facebook, as you can imagine, whether it's, we have a team calling in the automotive industry, the entertainment industry, the insurance industry, the financial services industry. And, real estate is the engine and the backbone of the American economy, the global economy. Right now we're focused on North America, given the size, scope, and scale of our team. But, again, this is such an important part of the economic development and health of our nation. It's really an obligation for us to make sure that we're empowering agents and brokers to really do things to the best effect for themselves and also for their consumers, whether it be the seller or the buyer that you're working with.
Sure. And there's also a lot of compliance to consider as well. So, that's another thing that will be, and again, compliance differs from state to state, but just understanding some best practices around,
Mhm.
what you should do, maybe also what you shouldn't do, as a way to just protect yourself, and in some of these marketing endeavors.
Yeah, and I think again, this is where education is power. So I can give you a really first top line one that pops up consistently. Agents with our targeting changes last year to make sure that we're fighting and handling and discrimination on platform. We want to make sure nobody is discriminated against. We worked
Sure.
with a lot of civil rights groups, housing groups, to make sure that the targeting changes actually were compliant. But one of the things that's interesting is our targeting age range changed in that, well, when you can only target a certain swath of age, you can't talk about alcohol. You can't talk about the
Sure.
wine cellar. You can't talk about the happy hour.
Oh, of course.
Those
I
are
never thought of that. You're right. Sure.
and those are common things that, you
Sure.
know, if you sure if we're in it every day, we think about it, but that's the role we play, which is to say, yes, think about what you put in your copy, think about the image of what you're doing. Those are things that our team is here to help. And by the way, there's a wide group of third-party tech companies that do great work on our platform on behalf of agents. So like it's a real synthesis of like how do we educate and how do we help. But that was one tip when you were talking. I was like, well, that's an easy one everybody can take home, which is be thoughtful about how you use alcohol in your advertising, because the age range in the US is now 18 plus.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Well, that is actually a great tip. I also know that you guys are doing a lot around COVID awareness and
Yeah.
how agents can sort of continue to use the tools sort of in where we are currently with the pandemic, and how to even make yourself possibly safer as a result.
Mhm. Yeah, so there are a couple of things, they're core, and I'll give you several that I think we think about when we're addressing COVID. First is, how do we make it easier for people to connect? At the core, our platforms are connection and communication platforms. So again, we've added more video capacity, we've added new functionality. Messenger Rooms really was the output, if you think about it, of the uptick in people using messaging apps on our platform, right? So, that's a way which we can be very nimble, quick to market, develop a product that actually can help people with communication. We've seen in cases, 100% increase in the use of messaging apps and video across our platforms during the pandemic. Facebook is a destination for long form video content. A lot of people might not think of it that way, but when you go in to the watch section of Facebook, that's long form content again. So we have people using and changing their consumer consumption patterns. So that's one. The other is we have a really large obligation to the 3 billion people on our platform, to make sure that we provide accurate information. We've donated $100 million to make sure that the news media in business are providing correct, credible sources of resources for people. We put that front and center. When you go to any of our apps, you'll see the COVID resource centers. We're partnering with Carnegie Mellon on virus survey, symptom mapping. The $100 million towards small businesses. The small business is the backbone of our company. It's a passion point for all of us. And frankly, that ties so well with real estate. Something we talk a lot about is when you meet an agent, and I'm at a conference, that's the CEO, CMO, CFO, and
Yes,
COO of the business.
that's right.
And
That's
so
the entire
thinking
C-suite team right there.
right there, it's one person trying to wear those hats. And so thinking about it from grants to small businesses, tools for small businesses, resource centers. And I think the other thing we are really focused on, and this ties into things that we'll talk about through the series, is really preparing your business to be digitally ready. Digital readiness, if you have not been a digital business, a digital first business, a mobile first business, you have to really get to that point very quickly. The world was already there, even more so now. So, if
Sure.
we were at 100, now we're at 200%. So I think
Right.
that's the other thing. If I'm thinking about this, if I'm an agent, the biggest thing I'm thinking about with my business is how good am I in the digital space? And that's pillar one. Pillar two is how good am I as a mobile marketer or
Sure.
communicator? Because that's where the world is, that's where your consumers are. So those are a couple of things. I think the other thing you and I will talk about, DJ, and we'll get into this with the Facebook Live part of the conversation, is this idea of new normal.
Yeah.
One thing I think that we are seeing a lot of large multinational brands do really well on our platform is speak to the voice, speak to the community, inspire, give back. And the vast majority of advertising that's done in real estate on Facebook, the house, the home, the listing
Sure.
is the lead. And it's really hard, I think, sometimes for agents to figure out, where do I fit into this?
Yeah.
Because you're the, you have the expertise. So the home is part of this. But, the other thing is, frankly, we work with the agents who we feel comfortable with, who we have faith in their expertise. And I think one of the things that we've been talking to agents a lot about is you're also the most connected people in your local community. Pair up with other businesses. Is there a
Yes.
coffee shop that you can join with? Is there a car dealer that you're doing things? Are you seeing your church, your synagogue, your mosque, your school do things? You as an agent are most likely the most dialed in and connected person to the local community. So using that as a way to bring community together, inspire community, but also frankly stand out with your brand, I think is also going to be the new normal. I think people are looking for brands, and again, back to that, you are the CMO of your business as well, CEO. Your
Sure.
brand needs to be thought of here, and what do you want your brand to stand for? So those are things within COVID that we've seen and that we're focused on moving forward. Certainly leads, the listing, that's core. You and I will talk about that a lot in the series, but I think it's also important for agents to start thinking about how do I use these platforms and how do I stand out so that consumers really know who I am and the value that I provide in this process of buying and selling real estate.
Yeah, boy, you said so much just there. I wanted to go back to one specific thing, just to reminded me of a story of somebody we interviewed on our show. We were talking about providing content. So sometimes realtors might, real estate professionals might think of Facebook as, with respect to promoting themselves. Well, I can, I can always, by advertising, I can promote a listing. But you talked a lot about, or a little bit about, and we'll get into more in future episodes about providing content and specifically giving back and value, we should say. So value, content that has really real value to your local community. And so you also talked about partnering with local businesses. Anyway, I had an agent on from the suburbs here in Chicago, and she was a new mother. This is, I can't remember, maybe 10 years ago when she started doing this. She realized there was not a Facebook page or a central resource online for new mom sort of activities and events in her suburb. And so she says, well, somebody should create this so that moms can collaborate and say, well, here's what's going on. So she started doing that. And that was the sole intention. She never mentioned she was a real estate agent. She's already a successful real estate agent, but literally she's just a moderator on the page. It's her page. And she said, first they started just posting information there about various events for local moms or new moms. And then they would start meeting, they do meetups as well. And they would coordinate that on Facebook. Anyway, now it's grown to about 2,000 members or 2,000 to 3,000 members over about 10 years, which may sound a bit small, but this is a small suburb, and it's only for mothers in the suburb. It's actually a big group for that size. And she just ran over time, has provided so much value outside of real estate that it's actually completely fueled her real estate business. And she gets all of her business. She says, I have never even once mentioned I was a real estate agent. That's how valuable that information. So a challenge to our listeners as we start to go through these episodes is start to think about, how can I add value to my local community? And, might be creating a page or contributing to an existing group or page. And what you may find down the road is that actually helps grow your business as sort of indirectly. So I just wanted to share that because I'm really glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, you're jogging my thought process there. I think there's a whole episode in this. I think there's a whole, how do you, we're going to talk a lot about advertising correctly for listings. Then I think the other point of this is like, again, just you are your brand, and there's more to it than just the listing that you may have at the time. And I think, that's one of the things that excites us about the continual growth that we're having in the industry. I mean, we are learning these things. We're learning how we can think broader and think in more terms of, one, you have so many different platforms that we offer, two, so many different experiences within each platform. So how do we put this together? Really the goal should be, how do you have a cohesive communication and marketing strategy across all of our platforms?
Yeah, boy, you couldn't have said it better. And that's what our intention is going to be throughout this series, is to help you start to unpack and detangle some of the social media sort of, the different platforms and services.
Yeah.
And we're going to tease them apart so you can look at them individually. Because I know it's easy just to lump them all together and say, okay, what do I do? How do I do this? And you do have to sort of look at each platform and tool and within the platform individually. But we're going to make it easy and we're going to make this very doable. So that even if you're not the most tech savvy person, you can begin to have more success utilizing Facebook.
Yeah.
And Scott, I know you also wanted to talk a little bit about Facebook Live as well, specifically.
Sure.
Could we pivot to that?
Absolutely, of course. So speaking of new normal, I think we've all seen in the industry that it's basic. If we're under shelter in place, we can't go out and we can't, in certain states, show property, which is obviously a huge hindrance to the business that you're trying to achieve. And so one of the things that we knew very quickly when COVID hit and when shelter in place began to come into effect is, we have tools and we have an ability and a platform that can allow you to still do open homes and show them to folks while people don't have to physically be there. And that's obviously through Facebook Live or Instagram Live. And it's obviously ironic that we're doing, this session on Facebook Live, which is proof of how we can use free communication to really impart advice and knowledge. So one of the things that we did is we produced a 2-sheet guide. DJ, I'll make sure you have it for posting on your website and in your
Sure.
group. It's a very simple how-to on how to do Facebook Live for virtual home showings. What we wanted to do is make sure that we took something that can be very, very, it can be intimidating. Being
Sure.
live on camera can be a very nerve-wracking experience, even for the most seasoned and professional person, right?
And even me, and I apologize for interrupting, but
No,
even me,
go
after
for it.
about 200 episodes, well, we've just started using Facebook Live for our podcast, which is the last 50 episodes. Even now, I get a little nervous waiting for that Facebook Live because it feels so final, and it does feel like you're doing something really big. And so it's important for agents to go through that experience and learn how to get more comfortable being live on Facebook, because it is something that Facebook, quite frankly, prioritizes in people's, in their news feeds. So it's also something that we're going to talk about how to use it and how to provide great content so that, number one, people want to tune in to your Facebook Live, but also that they come away thinking, wow, that agent's really, really on top of things.
And again, it's about being vulnerable. I'll give a great example. I was giving a keynote yesterday and I'm on Zoom and it's being done on Facebook Live at the same time. And all of a sudden, magically, I'm projecting a presentation for the keynote and we're walking through this and all of a sudden, whoop, there went the screen. And, in that moment, you're live. There is no pause button. It's and, I think I was prepared. I knew where, I took some measures to make sure I had backups. And that's something that as we actually develop the content, so we developed the content on the 2-sheeter for the Facebook Live.
Sure.
A couple of things really important. One, we worked with the Facebook Creative Shop. This is a team within Facebook that is made up of creative agency folks who really understand content. And so they have a lens on how to do it. So they were able to help us think through this. And then the other thing we wanted to make sure is that we broke this down into steps, which is, your before, your during, and your after. If you've never done this before, prep work, making sure you have a little bit of a scripted opening, doing the work, that's important. And then during the actual live open house, walking through, making sure that you think about it through the lens of, okay, I'm showing this house no differently than if I were standing next to you.
Sure.
It is absolutely no different if we're walking shoulder to shoulder, because you can get input from people who are commenting on the video. You're showing it to them the same way you would show me a house. I mean, if you're an agent, you're prepping, you've looked at the materials, you've maybe done the tour with a listing agent, what you want to show your client. So similarly, if you're the seller's agent, you know the home really well. So breaking and demystifying some of this is really important. The only thing different is I'm holding a gimbal.
Right.
By the way, folks, get a gimbal if you're going to
Yes.
do anything open homes. Gimbal is a selfie stick on steroids that actually is make
It
sure that we don't have to
stabilizes
Blair.
everything. Yeah.
Yes, it prevents you from having the Blair Witch Project as your virtual open home, is what I say to people. So, you have that, but then at the end of the day, the job that you've done for years, you're doing that. You're just the eyes and the ears and the tour guide for everybody else. And when people go, well, will anybody watch this? One, I would say don't get hung up on who's watching it live in the moment. You're probably going to be showing this home on a weekday in the middle of the day. And even though we're under shelter in place and people are online more, people are still working. It's that they come back, they do a watch party, they do the sit down. Think about this. Millions and millions and millions and millions of Americans watch HGTV. And how is that any different? How is House Hunters any different than what you're doing, showing a virtual home live? So we will walk through, and DJ, one of the things we should do is probably a deeper dive on this in one of our episodes and really get tactical. But what I want people to walk away with this from is this is part of the new normal. And so one of the things that we want to do in this series together with DJ is really to empower you. And so that this is not just, okay, in this moment, I need to learn this. This is in a year from now, I need to be really proficient because that's going to, again, help me stand out. I also think one of the things we uncovered with live is back to what we talked about with the brand side of the house. This is where your personality and your expertise comes in because you get to control the narrative. If you are an expert in a certain neighborhood in Chicago, I'm just going to call out Wrigleyville because it's the one in Chicago, that neighborhood, you control the live, you can show the house, but also talk about all the amazing things in the neighborhood and the things that you know. So I think, again, getting comfortable with these tools, they're here to be used properly. And when they are, what we notice is that, one, we are a very efficient lead generation platform. We have tons of eyeballs from a branding perspective. So when people want to pay attention to your brand, it's an amazing vehicle. And then it's also, I'll wrap up with this on this, DJ, is that it's an amazing communication tool. The idea of using Messenger, Instagram direct messaging, WhatsApp, those are also tools where you can begin post lead to have the conversation with the consumer. Because a live, if you think about it, when you're in a live and somebody asks you a question, wow, that's a tell. That's the hand being raised. And that can start a conversation just from the fact that you're showing a property. And so we're excited because we see more and more tools that people can put in the toolbox to drive success. And, again, back to the opening, our job is really to educate and help direct you to get the most out of each part of our platform.
Yeah, I think that was perfectly said, and a great place to cap off this episode and to talk, about, Scott mentioned a lot of things to come. We're going to take a deeper dive into the platforms, the tools within the platform, really helping you sort of dial down specific strategies so that you can build those in. And, if you find yourself these days with a little bit more time, what a great opportunity it is right now to spend some time to learn how to better utilize the platform that when you're busy is really easy to neglect. As agents, we know that when our clients are contacting us all day throughout the day, we're going to be communicating them possibly even through Facebook, but also figuring out how do I make this into a regular practice from a marketing perspective so that, I'm consistently engaging with my audience with the content they want. And so we're going to talk, and your brains might be spinning a bit at this point thinking about, okay, well, let's figure this out. And I would just encourage you, start thinking, everyone listening, if you're not already providing content beyond just, hey, here's the home that I'm listing, which is perfectly fine, but start thinking about how could I start creating more content? And if I was to have regular content via Facebook Live, what might I talk about? What is my area of expertise? And and the cool part about it is, if you commit to it for a certain period of time, you'll find out real quickly if it's resonating with your audience. It's a very simple acid test. I wouldn't be too hung up, as Scott also said, on the view count, just to let you know, when we do Facebook Live, which we love Facebook Live, we use it on all of our episodes. Our live watch count is actually quite low, but over time, we usually get, 1,000 or more people end up watching it. So even though you are live, you might only have a few people watching, but over time, if the content's really good, that number will also go up, but people will be sharing it. And so start thinking about, if I were to be creating content on Facebook beyond just here's my new listing, or if I'm not doing open houses on Facebook Live, or if I'm not even doing a virtual tour, or utilizing video technology, how could I start to think about doing that? And we'll get into specific ways to do it in future episodes. But Scott, I thought this was a great introduction to what's coming, and also what Facebook is doing specifically to help real estate agents. I bet most of our listeners didn't know your team existed. So we're so excited to, being a new team makes, we're excited to bring that information to our listeners. We couldn't be more excited to continue on with you. So I will say on behalf of our listeners, we want to, before we get to that, real quickly, we want your questions. So please send us your questions specifically around Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the various Facebook ecosystem of tools, and let us know what specifically you are looking to do as a real estate agent, or where there's confusion, or where you have questions. You can find us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com Keeping It Real Pod, or just go to our website and send us a form or an email via our contact form, which is keepingitrealpod.com. But Scott, on behalf of the listeners, we say thank you. This is so exciting for us, and I know our listeners are going to appreciate this series. And on behalf of Scott and myself, also to the listeners, we want to say thank you for continuing to listen, continuing to support our show. And we are so beyond excited to be able to bring this content. It's our number one most requested question. I've said that several times, but this is how excited I am, because we get to finally address some of the best practices. So thank you, Scott. And we will see you on our next Fireside Chat.
Great. Thank you, everyone.